As promised, we're going to dive into my preseason Big 12 power rankings, give a little explanation as to why I have West Virginia where they are, and a little discussion about the contenders and maybe a few dark horses in the race for the Big 12 in 2025. Today on Between Eers. Good Sunday morning, everyone. It's Schuyler Callihan with another episode of Between The Eers. Before we get started, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. As always, it greatly helps us in the algorithm and showing up on other Mountaineer fans and on their YouTube pages and so forth. So we greatly appreciate if you could give us a like and subscribe to our channel here at West Virginia on SI. And I know a week ago, I planned to have my Big 12 power rankings out, and we were going to do a show last Sunday on that. But I got way too deep into the weeds on this. And as for proof, these are my notes. I've got one sheet of paper, front and back, for every single team in the Big 12, all 16 teams. And it got way too in depth with my research. So it took me way longer than I anticipated. Probably did, gosh, 3 to 4 days worth of just jotting notes down and understanding who's even on the roster for everybody, because even though you look one place and they have this depth chart put together, and you go to another place, they have something different, and you go to the actual team site and there's guys missing, there's guys that are there that weren't there on other depth charts elsewhere, and it's a mess. And I understand why a lot of these people that put out college football previews wait as long as they can, like our guy Phil Steele, because he's got to track as much of this movement as possible before he goes to publish. But hats off to him and everybody else that is in that business, because it's crazy. I just did one conference, and I probably feel like I didn't do it justice. I probably could have even went a little bit deeper into my research. But to be honest, I've got other things I've got to do. I've got a baby to take care of. I've got other articles to write. I don't need to be going in depth with this as much as I did. So I'm giving it my best shot. Will it be accurate by season's end? We'll see. So I'm already prepared. Tell me how wrong I am. It is what it is. It's fun. But please let me know in the comment section here on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, that is, if you're not, go over to our channel and drop your thoughts below and let me know how wrong I am, how right I am, what you think, and so on and so forth. So let's just go and get started with where I have West Virginia at. So I'm not even going to waste the time of going through every single team. No one here is probably here for that reason. I will show the full list. I will show some love to a few teams. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but I'm going to first talk about where I have West Virginia, and that is number 10 coming in my preseason Big 12 power rankings. This is kind of a mix. It can maybe be a little confusing, honestly, because I have this as a power ranking setup, but I also in my article have the record predictions, which kind of go hand in hand with the power ranking. Now, let's be honest here. Power ranking isn't necessarily where you're projecting a team to go or be at the end of the year, but it's more of a where you see them now. So right now, technically, yeah, like the record predictions are going to match, but I could see a few teams on, that are towards the bottom of this list rise. I could see a few teams in the middle rise. I could see some at the top, maybe even fall if they get off to a slow start. So we're going to have our preseason, or not our preseason, but we're going to have a weekly Big 12 power rankings update every single Sunday throughout the football season on the website, West Virginia on SI. But for West Virginia, why do I have them 10th? Well, for about the same reason that everybody else has them 10th, or probably lower than 10th, if we're being completely truthful here. There's just so much unknown about this team, and no matter how you shake it, no matter what way you try to look at it, no matter what lens you try to look through, no No matter how you try to spin it, it all comes back to the same thing. You got question marks at quarterback. You got a whole new offensive line. You got a whole second group of offensive line that is brand new. You've got a whole new wide receiving core that is new. Apart from Jaheim White and Dior Hubbard, who may or may not be a part of the rotation, you got a whole new running back setup. Defensively, it's the same thing. You've got guys littered all over the back end that were not here in the past. You got some new linebackers in the fold. Defensive line's probably where you see the least amount of turnover, but you still have a lot, a lot of turnover actually. But you have some holdovers there like Hammond Russell, Eddie Vestrenin, Asani Redwood, Nate Gabriel, Corey McIntyre. So you have some guys there, but in large part, it just when it comes down to trying to predict or project where a team is going to be, you go off of this stuff right here, right? You go off of what you know. And with West Virginia's, there's not a whole lot that we do know. There's a lot of guys that they're going to be counting on potentially that are either coming up from the FCS level, coming up from Division II level, maybe even junior college, or they were guys at Power Four schools elsewhere or other Division I schools that didn't have as big of a role and are coming here and going to have an increased role. Or again, you may have guys from the group of six coming up and playing level up into the Big 12. How do they make that transition? So, with all of that wrapped into one, you're going to have a lot of people picking West Virginia towards the bottom. Now, what I'll say about this, and I don't want to get into my game by game predictions. You can see my record prediction on the article. I won't spoil it here. I'll make you go over to the article to check it out. But the game by game prediction I'll get into in August, which quite honestly that could change too. I'm not going to just stay and put it where I'm at. I'm going to adjust as I gather more information. But with the schedule, it's to be honest with you, like there's outside of the matchup in week one against Bobby Moe, Robert Morris, right? Every game on this schedule is winnable and it's also losable at the same time. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to run the table. I don't think that they're going to go 2-10 or 3-9, but you can make a case for every single game, including Ohio, that there's a chance they could lose. There's also a chance they could beat everybody on this schedule because, quite frankly, we don't know what this team is capable of. So, do they struggle like we all expect? Potentially. But what if everything gels together? They get the quarterback play that no one was expecting, and they're this year's Arizona State. It's possible. We don't know. I don't want to put a ceiling on this team, but it's hard to have the expectation as being this year's Arizona State, being a 9 or 10 win team. So that's why I want fans to understand is when I'm saying I'm picking them 10th, don't confuse that for saying that or for me thinking that they can't finish higher than 10th. They most certainly can. They can finish hell, they could win the league for all I know. But as of today, the way they have so many question marks compared to other teams that have fewer, I can't put them higher. To me, that would be not fair to the team. That'd not be fair to the coaching staff to have them with higher expectations. So 10th is where I have them. But again, you can flip flop a couple of games and all of a sudden, boom, you're sixth in the league or you're fourth in the league. So a lot of it just comes down to winning one score games, which this league has been known for years now. Last year had the most, I think was it the most game winning drives or most fourth quarter lead changes, something like that in all of college football. So that's probably going to be another reason why you're going to see, teams 10 through 4 or 10 through 3 kind of jumbled up. There's going to be a lot of similarity there, a lot of parity in this league. So that's where I have West Virginia. Um, But as far as the other teams in this league, so let's go ahead and take a look at the entire rankings here. UCF, Colorado, Oklahoma State, Arizona, those four teams, I'm going to be straight with you here. Unless I'm just not seeing something, there's going to be some long seasons there in those four respective programs. I just, and really the one that sticks out obviously is probably Colorado, especially when you read the Big 12 article, power ranking article, and you look at the record that I have for them. It was really, really, really hard for me to put them at where I did, but it's when you compare their roster to others and you look at where games are being played and who they're playing, it was just really, really hard for me to find wins for them. And they're replacing a lot of talent. Shador Sanders, Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn. I mean, the list goes on. They got a lot of guys that they're replacing. They don't have a run game. They haven't had a run game since Dion has been there. The defense has not been great. I think it actually could be what makes them competitive this year, so we'll see. But I think Colorado, of these four teams, has the most potential to make me look like a fool, if you will. I think they could, if they get the good quarterback play out of Caden Salter, the Liberty transfer, or if they go with the young gun Juju Lewis, and he surprises, then perhaps they find a way to sneak around 5 or 6 wins. But I just can't get there with them right now. The next batch: Houston, Kansas, obviously West Virginia at 10, and Cincinnati. These four, this is where it starts getting hairy. I mean, you could look at even Houston's schedule and look and say, well, dang, if they could just win a couple of road games here and there, maybe they are the surprise of this year. Obviously, it's going to start with Connor Wegman, the former Texas A&M transfer, who's a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. If he comes into his own and is the quarterback that everyone expects him to be, then that paired with the running game that they have, the trio of running backs, the defense that they're always going to have under Willie Fritz, that can make them a dangerous team. So starting at 12, it gets interesting. Kansas, I mean, Jalen Daniels, if he goes back to the way he was 2 years ago and when he was healthy, the case could be made for Kansas. And I feel bad putting Kansas as low as I did because Lance Leipold is such a good coach. But again, comes down to schedule, comes down to matchups, comes down to certainties. And there's some spots on this Kansas roster that I feel like are either glaring weaknesses or potential issues. I already talked about West Virginia and Cincinnati. I would probably say out of this grouping here of four, they have the most, like Colorado, the best chance to prove me wrong. And to be honest with you, they could be a top 6, top 5 team in the league. If everything hits right, they're firing on all cylinders. They get every single break that go their way. They've got some talent. I like the running back situation they have with Evan Pryor and the Wisconsin transfer Tawee Walker. Defensively, it's going to be, I think, a little bit of a struggle, but they've got one of the best tight ends in the league in Joe Royer. They have arguably one of the best offensive lines in the league, one of the most experienced offensive lines in the league. They got some talented receivers. And Brennan Sorsby, I think, is underrated as a quarterback in his own right. So I think Cincinnati there is the team that could sneak up on some people and surprise. Moving into the top half of the league, BYU, TCU, Kansas State, and how about that Arizona State? Last year's Big 12 champ and the Big 12's lone representative in the college football playoff. Look, I'll go with Arizona State here first, since they are the team that's probably going to pop out to everybody. This league is going to eat each other up. And when you look at some of the matchups that they have, it's pretty tough. I mean, they've got some of the top teams in the league um, that they're going to have to go up against, and trying to find it here. They open up Big 12 play with four contenders or three contenders and one dark horse. They got Baylor, TCU, Utah, Texas Tech, catch a little bit of a break with Houston, and then they got Iowa State. And then after that, on paper, it tends to get a little easier with West Virginia, Colorado, and Arizona. But that's a brutal start to the schedule. And not to mention they have a road trip to Mississippi State at the beginning of the year, too, in week 2. This is a team that's going to be tested, and they could trip up a few times and stub their toe. Utah's a good football team. Texas Tech's a good football team. You mean to tell me after they play Utah in a very, very physical game that they're not potentially liable to stub their toe against Texas Tech, who's pretty good all of a sudden? I mean, you got Baylor, TCU back to back. I mean, that's just a really tough schedule. The Big 12 did them no favors, of course. Nobody cares at the Big 12 league offices. They just put teams together on a schedule and say go play. But Arizona State, they're talented as can be. They got all these pieces coming back. I just wonder the the brutality of this schedule. Is it going to sting them? I think that's quite a possibility. Going back to the list here, Kansas State, TCU, I think those two are really kind of where the contention slash dark horse label can be thrown into play. I think BYU, even with Jake Retzloff, I think they were still going to be a team that took a step back this year. For some reason, I just had that feeling, even if he was there, they weren't going to be quite as good. He was an above average quarterback last year. He made the right plays more often than not. He had a lot of help, but I don't see them as being a team that's at nearly as talented as the top 4, top 5, maybe even top 6 or 7 teams. Obviously, I have them eighth, but I just don't think. I think 8 is honestly their ceiling. And especially without Retzloff at the helm. So TCU, Kansas State's where it starts to get super interesting. But to get down to the gritty here, the top 4 teams: Texas Tech, Utah, Iowa State, Baylor. I mean, you could pick any of them to win the league, and I really couldn't have an argument against it. Utah's the one that I feel like I'm overshooting just a little bit here, but everybody's talking up Utah. You think about Kyle Whittingham, how good of a coach he is. How often is it that he has 2 really disappointing years in a row? Not very often. Brings in a quarterback in Devin Dempierre from New Mexico and a new offensive coordinator, which he was with. Feels like that could be the fix to their offensive issues last year. They're always going to play good defense. If they just get the offense fixed, they're going to be right there. You would assume. So Utah's there 3, 4. Texas Tech. I think they just, as good as they've always been offensively, the defense has just been an Achilles heel for them over the years, and they finally were able to fix that because of the way things are nowadays with college football. You can go out and just buy your roster. Texas Tech's got a lot of money. That's that oil money, baby, or whatever type of money it is. I don't know, but they've got a lot of it. That's what I do know. And they fixed pretty much every hole on their defensive roster. So got to put them there at 4. And then Iowa State and Baylor. I think there's actually a pretty sizable gap between the two, but I think Iowa State's worthy of being considered at the top spot. But Baylor's just, they're a complete team. They really are, man. Like, quarterback Sawyer Robertson was one of the hottest quarterbacks in the country last year once he got the keys handed over to him. He's got 2 really good running backs to hand the ball off to him: Bryson Washington, Dawson Pendergrass. Some really good receivers, Michael Trigg at tight end. I mean, they're complete. And defensively with Dave Aranda, similar to Kyle Whittingham at Utah, they're always going to be pretty well on that side of the ball, even when they may have some issues at some spots. So that's where I have it as of right now. It's my Big 12 preseason power rankings. West Virginia checking in at number 10. Let me know your thoughts, where you believe West Virginia should be. Who do you have winning the league? Let's be realistic here. Take the West Virginia colored glasses off for just a half a second and let me know who you really think will win the league. And it'll be fun reading the comments for this one, I'm sure. So thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Between the Eers. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button here on our page at West Virginia on SI. We are off tomorrow and back on Tuesday. Until then, take care.